Welcome back, Deep Divers. Today, we're going to be spelunking through Chapter 5 of Secure and Resilient Software Development.
Ooh, sounds intense.
It is, kind of. We're looking at how they build security and resilience right into the design of the software itself.
From the ground up, so to speak.
Exactly. Should be fascinating. You ready to jump in?
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
So, the book starts by talking about how, like, when we think of software, we usually think about, features and functionality, the stuff users see.
Right, the bells and whistles.
Yeah. But there's this whole other world of what they call non-functional requirements.
NFRs.
Yeah, NFRs. And they're crucial, but they don't always get the attention they deserve.
It's true. Things like security, resilience, performance, they're not always the most glamorous aspects of software development.
Yeah, it's easy to overlook them when you're focused on making the software, like, do cool things.
Right, you're racing to get the next feature out the door, meet deadlines, stay within budget. It's tempting to put NFRs on the back burner.
But the thing is, if you skimp on those, it can come back to bite y'all later, right?
Oh, absolutely. Big time. I mean, think about data breaches, system crashes, all that nasty stuff. Nobody wants to deal with that.
A total nightmare.
Yeah.
So how do designers actually, like, weave those NFRs into the design? It's got to be more than just, like, a checklist, right?
Right. There are actual techniques and processes involved. One that really caught my eye in the chapter is something called misuse case modeling.
Misuse case modeling. Okay, I'm intrigued. What's that all about?
Well, imagine you're a software designer and you want to make sure your software is secure.
Yeah, makes sense.
So what you do is you basically try to break into your own software.
Wait, what? You're trying to hack yourself?
Essentially, yeah. You put on your, black hat, your hacker hat, and you try to find vulnerabilities before the bad guys do.
Whoa, that's pretty hardcore. Like playing a game of digital capture the flag with yourself.
It is. But it's incredibly effective. It forces you to think like an attacker and see your software from a completely different perspective.
So you're like proactively finding weaknesses and then figuring out how to like patch those holes before they become a problem.
Exactly. You're anticipating attacks and building defenses, and to keep track of all this, they use tools like requirements traceability matrices.
Requirements traceability matrices. Sounds complicated.
It's basically a way to connect the dots between the potential threats and the software's features.
Okay, so it's all about like mapping out the attack surface, all the different ways someone could try to, infiltrate the software.
Precisely. And then figuring out how to protect against each of those attack vectors.
This is like next level strategic thinking. I
Oh.
love it. But, gotta ask, with so many potential threats out there, how do designers even know where to begin? Where do they focus their energy?
That's where threat modeling and risk analysis come in. It's like, imagine you're building a fortress, right?
Okay, I'm with you.
Threat modeling is about identifying all the possible ways someone could try to break in.
So like looking for weak spots in the walls, unguarded entrances, all that.
Exactly. You're mapping out the entire attack surface. Then, risk analysis is about figuring out, okay, which of these threats are the most likely?
And which ones would cause the most damage if they were successful?
Exactly. So you're prioritizing your defenses, focusing on the most critical areas.
So it's not just about patching every little hole. It's about strategically choosing which battles to fight.
Precisely. And the book lays out some helpful guidelines for making those decisions.
Okay, so like what kind of things should designers be on high alert for?
Well, one rule of thumb is if the data hasn't crossed what they call a trust boundary, you can probably relax a little bit.
Just boundary.
It's basically the line between your secure system and the outside world.
Okay, so as long as the data is still safely inside your system, it's like keeping your valuables locked in a vault.
Exactly. But once that data starts venturing out, like onto the network or the internet, that's when you need to be extra careful.
Makes sense. What other red flags should designers be watching out for?
A few key scenarios always raise eyebrows, like running code with elevated privileges, listening on the network, fetching data from the internet, handling file data.
Okay, those all sound pretty sketchy. Like opening the door to all sorts of trouble.
They can be, yeah. Each of those scenarios presents potential opportunities for attackers to exploit.
So designers really got to be on their toes, thinking several steps ahead, anticipating all the ways things could go wrong.
Absolutely. And then on top of that, they have to actually build resilience into the software itself. It's not just about preventing attacks, it's also about making sure the software can withstand them and recover quickly.
So like building a system that can bend without breaking, right?
Exactly. And that's where the three pillars of resilience come in. high availability, data security, and high performance.
Okay, I'm listening. Break it down for me. What do those mean in practice?
High availability means making sure the software stays up and running even if part of the system fails.
So no downtime, happy users, right?
Right. They achieve this through techniques like using Linux clusters, which are basically teams of servers working together, or setting up a disaster recovery site.
A disaster recovery site. Sounds serious.
It is. It's basically a backup location that can take over if the main site goes down.
Like a spare tire for your software.
Exactly. Then there's data security, which is all about protecting sensitive information. Encryption is key here.
So even if someone gets their hands on the data, it's just a bunch of gibberish without the right key.
Exactly. And then finally, there's high performance, which might not seem directly related to security, but it plays a crucial role.
Okay, now that's interesting. How does speed equate to resilience?
Well, think about it. A slow, sluggish system is more vulnerable to attacks like denial of service, where attackers try to overwhelm the system with requests.
Oh, so a fast, efficient system is less likely to buckle under pressure.
Precisely. And they achieve this through code optimization, making the code lean and mean.
So it's all connected. Security, resilience, performance. They all work together.
They do. But of course, there are always trade-offs to consider.
Like you can't always have everything right. There's got to be some give and take.
Exactly. For instance, encryption, while crucial for security, can sometimes slow things down a bit.
So it's like choosing between a heavy-duty vault door that takes forever to open and a flimsy latch that's quick but easy to break.
That's a great analogy. And then there's the trade-off between security and usability.
Right. If you make a system too secure, it can become a pain to use.
Exactly. And then there's the cost factor. Implementing top-notch security measures can get expensive.
So it's a balancing act, really. Weighing risks and benefits, trying to find that sweet spot.
Absolutely. And that's where the skill and judgment of the designer really come into play.
So designers aren't just writing code. They're making strategic decisions with potentially huge consequences.
They are. And those decisions are often made in the context of those non-functional requirements we were talking about.
The NFRs. So it's not just about making the software work. It's about making it work securely, reliably, and efficiently.
Exactly. It's a holistic approach.
This is fascinating stuff. And the book goes even deeper, talking about design patterns as a key tool for building secure software. Can you give me a quick rundown on that?
Sure. Think of design patterns as like prefabricated blueprints for solving common security problems.
So like reusable building blocks that designers can incorporate into their software.
Exactly. They're tried and true solutions that have been proven to work. And the book breaks them down into 3 levels: architectural, design, and implementation.
Okay, give me a glimpse into each level. What kind of pre-built security solutions are we talking about here?
At the architectural level, you have patterns like distrustful decomposition and privilege separation. These are all about dividing the system into smaller, self-contained units, kind of like compartments in a ship.
So if one compartment gets breached, the damage is contained.
Precisely. Then, at the design level, you have patterns like secure factory, secure state machine, and secure chain of responsibility. These are more focused on specific design elements.
Okay, starting to get a little technical here. Any real-world examples?
Sure, imagine you're building an online banking system.
Okay, high stakes there.
A secure state machine pattern could be used to make sure a user can't transfer money without going through the proper authentication steps, like entering a password and a one-time code.
So it's like a series of checks and balances to prevent unauthorized actions. Makes sense.
And then at the implementation level, you have patterns like secure logger, clear sensitive information, secure directory. These are about handling sensitive data securely at the code level.
It's like a set of guidelines for writing code that's both functional and secure.
Exactly. And there are tons of these patterns out there covering a wide range of security challenges.
Wow. So it's like having a toolbox full of prefabricated parts ready to be assembled into a secure and resilient system.
That's a great way to put it. And these patterns are especially important when it comes to building web applications, which are, often exposed to the internet and all its dangers.
Right, because web apps are like the front line of the digital world. They're constantly under attack.
They are, and that's where the concept of layered architecture comes into play.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this layered architecture.
Sure. Imagine a building with, 3 floors, right?
Okay, picturing it.
Each floor has a specific purpose, and they're all connected, but they're also separate.
Got it. So how does that apply to software?
Well, in a 3-tier architecture, you have the web server on the top floor, the application server in the middle and the database server on the bottom.
Okay, so each layer has a specific role to play.
Exactly. And the beauty of this layered approach is that it enhances security.
Oh, so,
Well, each layer acts as a security checkpoint. The web server handles requests from the outside world, but it doesn't have direct access to the database.
so it's like the security guard at the front door.
Exactly. Then the application server handles the business logic, but it can only access the database through secure channels.
So it's like a series of checkpoints, making it much harder for an attacker to get to the really sensitive data.
Precisely. And on top of that, this layered architecture offers a bunch of other benefits too.
Like what?
Well, it allows for centralization, making management easier. It enhances reliability so the system can keep running smoothly. It's scalable so you can easily expand as needed. And it's flexible so you can adapt to new requirements and challenges.
Wow, so many advantages. It sounds like the three-tier architecture is a real powerhouse.
It is. It's a solid foundation for building secure and efficient web applications.
But, having a blueprint is one thing, building it securely is another. How do we make sure these architectures are implemented correctly in the real world?
That's where architecture and design reviews come in. Think of them as like rigorous inspections.
So there's a checklist involved.
Oh, yeah. There are detailed checklists they use. They cover a wide range of security considerations, from basic stuff like authentication and authorization to more complex areas like configuration management, sensitive data handling, session management, cryptography, parameter manipulation, exception management, and auditing and logging.
Sounds pretty thorough.
It has to be. Security is a complex beast, and you gotta cover all your bases.
Speaking of complexity, we talked earlier about those trade-offs in designing for security and resilience. Can you expand on that a bit more?
Sure. Like you said, encryption is crucial for security, but it can sometimes slow things down.
Right, the vault door analogy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's the balance between security and usability. You don't want to make the system so secure that it becomes unusable.
Right, got to find that sweet spot.
And then there's the cost factor. Top-notch security measures can get expensive.
So it's a constant balancing act.
It is, and the decisions will vary depending on the specific context.
Like a system handling medical records will need a much higher level of security than, say, a simple game app.
Exactly. It's all about assessing the risks and choosing the right tools for the job.
This is all so incredibly insightful. I'm really starting to appreciate the complexities of secure software design. It's way more nuanced than I ever imagined.
It is. It's a fascinating field.
It really is. And it seems like we've only just scratched the surface here. There's so much more to explore.
There is, but I think we've laid a good foundation.
We have. And for our listeners out there, we want to leave you with a question to ponder. When it comes to the software you use every day, what trade-offs would you prioritize? Would you lean towards security, performance, cost?
Something to think about.
It is. It's a decision we often make without even realizing it.
Very true. And the answer might surprise you.
Well, folks, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. But remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to secure software design.
There's a whole world of knowledge out there just waiting to be discovered.
So keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, keep asking questions.
Absolutely. Because in the world of software, security is never a one-time thing. It's a continuous journey.
A journey we're all on together.
Exactly. So buckle up and let's keep diving deeper.
Until next time, happy learning.
See you next time. So, like we were saying about web applications.
Yeah, they're kind of a big deal these days.
Huge. And because they're so exposed to the internet, security is paramount.
Right, you've got all sorts of potential attackers lurking out there, just waiting to pounce.
Exactly. And that's where this layered architecture we were talking about comes in.
Okay, remind me again, how does that work?
Well, imagine you're building a house.
Okay, I like where this is going.
And you want to make it really secure, right? So you don't just have one lock on the front door.
You have multiple layers of security.
Precisely. You might have a fence around the property, then a strong front door, and maybe even an alarm system.
And maybe a guard dog for good measure.
Exactly. So it's the same idea with software. You want to have multiple layers of defense to make it much harder for attackers to get in.
So in this analogy, the software is the house, and the different layers are like the fence, the door, the alarm system.
Exactly. And in the case of web applications, this layered architecture is usually called the three-tier architecture.
The 3 tiers.
Yep. You have the web server, the application server, and the database server.
Okay, break it down for me. What does each tier do?
Well, the web server is like the front door of your house. It's the first point of contact for anyone trying to access the application.
So it handles all the incoming requests from users.
Exactly. And it might do some basic processing, like checking for valid login credentials.
But it doesn't have access to the really sensitive stuff like the database.
Nope. That's where the application server comes in. It's like the living room of your house where all the action happens.
So it handles the business logic, the core functionality of the application.
Right. And it can access the database, but only through secure channels.
So it's like a trusted intermediary, making sure that only authorized requests get through.
Precisely. And then finally, you have the database server, which is like the vault in your house where all the valuable data is stored.
Okay, so the database server is heavily guarded, only accessible by the application server.
Exactly. It's the most secure layer of the architecture.
I'm starting to see how this layered approach makes the entire system more resilient. Even if one layer gets compromised, the attacker still has to get through the others.
Exactly. It's all about defense in depth. And this layered approach doesn't just improve security, it also offers a whole host of other benefits.
Like what?
Well, it allows for centralization, making management easier. It enhances reliability, ensuring the system can keep running smoothly. It's scalable, so you can easily expand as needed. And it's flexible, adapting to new requirements and challenges.
Wow, so many advantages. It sounds like this three-tier architecture is a real winner.
It is, and it's widely used in web application development.
Okay, so let's say we've got this awesome three-tier architecture all planned out. How do we make sure it actually gets implemented securely in the real world?
Well, that's where those architecture and design reviews come in.
The ones with the super detailed checklists.
The very same. Those reviews are crucial for catching potential security flaws early on, before they become a problem.
So it's like having a team of experts come in and scrutinize every aspect of the design.
Exactly. They're looking for any weaknesses, any vulnerabilities, any places where an attacker might be able to slip through.
So what kind of things are on these checklists? Give me some examples.
Well, they cover a wide range of security considerations. Everything from the basics like authentication.
Making sure users are who they say they are.
Yep. And authorization, making sure users only have access to the information they're supposed to.
Okay, so that's the foundation. What else?
Then there's configuration management, making sure the system is configured securely. Sensitive data handling, making sure sensitive data is protected at all times.
So like encrypting data, using strong passwords, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Then you have session management, making sure user sessions are handled securely. Cryptography, using strong encryption algorithms. Parameter manipulation, preventing attackers from tampering with data.
Okay, starting to get a little technical here, but I'm getting the idea. These checklists are super comprehensive.
I have to be. Security is all about attention to detail.
Makes sense. So these reviews help ensure that the software is secure from the ground up.
They do.
Yeah.
And they're an essential part of the software development process.
You know, we keep coming back to this idea of trade-offs in software design. It's like, you can't have everything. You have to make choices.
It's true. And those choices can be tough.
Like we talked about how encryption can sometimes slow things down. So do you prioritize security over performance?
Well, it depends on
what?
the specific application, the sensitivity of the data, the risk tolerance of the organization. There's no one-size-fits-all answer.
It's a judgment call.
It is, and a very important one.
It's like sometimes you need that heavy-duty vault door, even if it takes a while to open. And sometimes a simple lock is enough.
Exactly. It's all about assessing the risks and making informed decisions.
And those decisions have real-world consequences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They can impact the security, the performance, the usability, the cost of the software. It's a lot to consider.
It's a huge responsibility for software designers.
It is, but it's also a fascinating challenge.
I bet. You know, listening to all this, it really strikes me how much we rely on software these days. It's everywhere.
It is, and that reliance is only going to grow.
So the stakes are getting higher and higher.
They are, and that's why secure software design is more important than ever.
Well said. It's not just about building software that works. It's about building software that works securely.
Exactly, and that requires a deep understanding of security principles, a commitment to best practices, and a willingness to constantly adapt and evolve.
Because the threat landscape is always changing, right?
Always. New threats emerge every day, so we have to stay ahead of the curve.
It's an ongoing arms race.
It is. And it's a race we can't afford to lose.
Well said. You know, this deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening. I'm learning so much.
Glad to hear it. It's a topic I'm passionate about.
It shows. And it's clear that this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to explore in the world of secure software design.
Oh, absolutely. We could talk about this for hours.
I bet we could. But unfortunately, we're running out of time.
Time flies when you're having fun talking about security.
It does. But before we wrap up, we want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Intrigue them a bit.
Exactly. So here's a question for you all. When it comes to the software you use every day, what trade-offs are you willing to make? Would you sacrifice a bit of performance for enhanced security? Would you pay a premium for a more secure product?
Good questions. It really makes you think about your own priorities.
It does. And sometimes those priorities might surprise you.
Definitely. We often make these decisions unconsciously without really considering the implications.
Food for thought indeed. And hopefully, this deep dive has given you all a better understanding of the complexities involved in designing secure software.
That's the goal. Knowledge is power, as they say.
It is. And the more we know about how software is designed, the better equipped we are to make informed decisions about the software we use.
Absolutely. We're all in this together after all.
We are. So folks, keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, keep asking questions.
Stay curious.
Until next time, happy learning. It's like we've just peeked through the keyhole, you know?
Yeah.
There's a whole world of secure software design out there.
A whole universe. But hopefully this deep dive has given our listeners a good starting point.
Yeah, like a roadmap for navigating this complex landscape.
Exactly. And maybe even spark some curiosity to explore further.
Definitely. So for everyone listening, we want to leave you with a question to ponder.
A challenge.
Exactly. Think about the software you use every day. What's most important to you? Would you be willing to sacrifice a bit of performance for, like, ironclad security? Or maybe pay a premium for a product that's known for its rock-solid resilience?
Tough choices.
They are. And sometimes the answers might surprise you. It's like we often make these trade-offs without even realizing it.
Subconsciously.
Exactly. We just click accept without really thinking about the implications.
So true.
So, yeah, folks, take a moment to consider those trade-offs. What's your priority when it comes to the software you rely on?
It's a question worth asking.
Definitely. And remember, this deep dive is just the beginning. There's a whole world of secure software design out there waiting to be explored.
So keep digging, keep learning, keep those questions coming.
Absolutely. Because in the world of software, security is never a one-and-done deal. It's an ongoing journey.
A journey we're all on together, developers and users alike.
Exactly. So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and stay secure out there.
Happy coding, everyone.